Just get started. You're gonna continue to learn things along the way. You're gonna learn more doing it than you are not. You have to be able to push yourself or nudge yourself in a direction far enough and confident enough to know that it's not always going to be perfect, that sometimes going to be hard, that you can learn so much from doing it rather than just sitting on the sidelines and watching.
There we go. What's happening?
Hey, dude, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
I mean, exactly. We're a day early / a day late, but welcome, Crushing Iron Podcast. What are we, 321?
Yeah, right. 332.
332, man. We again, welcome, Crushing Iron Podcast. Come to you twice a week, traditionally on Mondays and Thursdays, but whenever we have a holiday week that kind of falls interesting in our travel schedules, as you're always usually heading back to Wisconsin and I'm going back and forth between Nashville and Alabama for Allie's family. We bump things around, so we appreciate your patience, and hey, we still deliver twice a week. Yes, it's a triathlon related podcast, but as if you've listened before, hopefully, we talk about it all. We talk about life. We talk about what we're going through personally in regards to triathlon and training, and really endurance sports in general, and not just the training, but the mindset and the things that we kind of go through in our day-to-day lives as athletes, and then Mike and I as coaches, and then also frequently share some of the stories that our athletes have and have gone through, and do that to the best of our abilities and more of a light and loose conversational style format, and let you take the info that you need and then take it back to your own training and life, and hopefully put it to good use to set yourself up for success in all things.
Yep. So you've been going to Alabama a little bit more. So is the Crimson Blood sneaking in?
You know what? Let me tell you something. There was early, maybe it was last week, and I kind of thought to myself, and I'm sure I'll get, we got a lot of athletes and a lot of listeners in Kentucky, but it's so nice this time of year to have it so quiet on the University of Alabama football front
Oh,
and the University of Kentucky basketball front. It's so nice because usually, Bama's always in like the college football playoff, and Kentucky is usually undefeated this time of year. It's still overrated, but it's always usually undefeated this early in the year. I think now they've already got like 3 losses, and obviously Alabama is, on a decline. They'll probably fire Nick Saban midway through the season next year and hire Jimmy Johnson. But no, it's definitely not rubbing off. And thankfully, my in-laws are not big Bama fans. But no, traveled to Alabama, visited with Allie's family. We're back here in Nashville today, visiting with my mom and our side of the family, and then we're going to head back to Chattanooga here in a few hours so we can have Christmas Eve and Christmas at our own house and have that for Hayden. It's exciting. It's like its first. He's 3.5, so it's like the first time he kind of really understands what's going on, and is like excited about it. He's still not a huge fan of Santa. He likes the premise, as as most people most people do, is getting gifts for basically nothing. But he at daycare a few weeks ago, they had pictures, Christmas pictures, and you could either do one with Santa or a Winter Wonderland picture. If you didn't want to, associate with Santa, and he chose Winter Wonderland. Uh,
is
and
he scared like I was?
he's just like, he doesn't do strangers, and he's got good boundaries, I think. And like last night, we were getting on the shower, and I was like, "Hey, you know what, buddy? In a night or two, who's coming over? Coming to visit?" And he's like, "I know, Santa." And I said, "Are you excited?" He goes, "Yeah. I just don't want him to look at me." And I was like, I was like, "Listen, man, apple doesn't fall far from the tree. But hey, whatever you need to get excited. But yeah, we'll do that. And but yeah, I'm excited and excited to do this podcast, and um, we obviously have a little bit of direction to go. But earlier this week, I don't know what we were texting or talking about, but I was like, I wonder what our top 10 podcasts have been download wise. I obviously am a little bit surprised by the list. Do you mind if I like roll down them real quick?
Oh, go for it, man.
So and this, like, again, like, Mike and I are always trying to improve what we do with the podcast, and as generally we like to keep things light and loose, and I don't want to say unstructured, but we don't like to close ourselves off and just letting the conversation go to where we feel is best. But I think what we've also learned over the last few weeks and months and just over the last 3 years is that a lot of our athletes in a sport that is so confusing, they do like, I mean, as we all know this, type A triathletes like structure. They like things that are finite, they like things that are listed out. Because again, I think one of the main reasons we've always done this podcast is to connect and inform, but also to deliver hopefully a message or information in what is oftentimes a really confusing sport, but do it in a way, like we kind of joke, like kind of a horoscope way or the Seinfeld way. Like it's you take from it what you want to get from it. We don't want to shove a specific ideology or training technique down your throat and say this is the only way and you have to do this, because a lot of times what that does is that just turns people off. And it'll and there's a lot of ways to do a lot of things, and what we do is we try to just generally give you good ideas and outlines or positive philosophies around ways to improve yourself in triathlon and swimming, cycling, and running, and then obviously with the mindset and how to approach things. But I think we've also learned over the last few weeks, especially in months, is that our listeners, and if it's your first time listening, that you guys like structure. You like some of the podcasts that are outlined with a little more definition. And I know that you and I have both kind of chatted offline about trying to do a better job of that, and we always do our best to kind of listen to the people who listen to the podcast and download and share. And I think without them saying it, our top 10, in a way, kind of says that. And the first one, which I was very surprised about, given its early release, was the number one most downloaded podcast of all time is How to Not Suck at Running, which was only released in October. Um, the second one was The Art of Learning Triathlon, and that one surprised me because it was one of a more broad. Back to its podcast 273, we released that in June. The third one was Building Winning Habits in Triathlon, podcast 271. Then our fourth downloaded podcast of all time, which I love this. Keep Things Simple, The Professional Mindset. That was 313. And then one of the more popular series that we've ever done is the How to Not Suck at Swimming Part 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. That was the fifth most downloaded podcast. Number 6, and I'm kind of surprised it wasn't higher on the list, was a fantastic interview we did with Ken Hammond, Ironman 70.3 Ohio, the Ohio course preview with Ken Hammond, the race director. That was number 6. The 7th most downloaded one of all time, Bad Habits of Triathletes and How to Break Them, followed closely by basically a tie, The Hard Truth About Triathlon Swimming. So you got two sport-specific ones already with swimming, and then How to Not Suck at Running. Followed up by the ninth, How to Not Suck at Cycling Part 3, which is podcast 322. And then number 10, which is one of the more fun ones that I've enjoyed doing, hence the title, was Find the Fun in Your Life. And that was the number 10. That was podcast 310. A good mixture, I would say. I don't know if you were surprised as I were to see a lot of those, and obviously some of those statistics are skewed because they started, I think what you said is tracking downloads differently from when we started, because I honestly imagine to see some of the How to Not Suck at Swimming podcasts up there in the top 10. But overall, it was pretty interesting to see in my point of view. What was your biggest takeaway on those top 10?
I think it was the same. Like I said, the stat thing is a little skewed because they did at one point, I think a year into our recording, started a new system, so a lot of the old stuff didn't get kind of brought forward. So I think that has to do with a lot of the swimming ones. And but yeah, I think that people like the balance. I mean, I don't know, man. As we decided early on in the podcast, it's like we can't talk every week about 10 ways to be better at cycling. So we knew that we had to go a different way, and we are both two people that want to get better. We're super intrigued by getting better at this sport, and we just explore that all the time, and wherever that leads is wherever it has to go, because that's what keeps us going, I think, on a lot of levels. And I think what I find amazing is that how often we hear people that, say we're thinking right, in their same ballpark. It's like, man, you're just thinking exactly what I was thinking this week or whatever it may be. So for me, it's just more of an ebb and flow. And I think that, a lot of it has to do with the fact that we just have a lot more listeners now, and so we're going to see a little bit of a spike from some recent ones, I guess. And I think that certainly running is a huge sport, or a huge part
It
of
is it
everyone.
is a huge
It's a
sport.
huge sport. um, I-
Recently, just a quick little statistic, running recently became, for the first time ever, more participated in by women than men.
really?
Yeah, just this last year, they and like a huge statistical like data dump of all races and participation. I think for the first time ever, women participated more than men. It was by a very narrow margin. It's like almost like 50-50. But I thought that was interesting. I think it's fantastic. But yeah, I thought this was an interesting little blip right there to throw in there.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not even going to go into why. I have no idea. Do you
Yeah,
know
I
why?
think I no, I don't, but I think it's awesome. I think well, that's not true. I think running is a, and listen, like there'll be a lot of, people who say triathlon is a selfish sport and triathlon is, for as people who have elitist attitudes and type A's, it's not very welcoming. And I think that's true with specific people and maybe even specific groups. But running has always kind of felt a little more open, non-judgmental. And I think that is part of the allure, that people feel safer, not physically, but feel safer presenting themselves at a race where they know they're going to see a million different shapes and sizes and ages, and you're not going to know really who's winning or losing. Or it's like I think it's just interesting, like the the formats and how free you feel. And I kind of got that feeling. I did my like first trail race in a long time over the weekend, and just the difference in feel of it. In like you're not looking at anybody's calf, to see like what age group they're in. It was a lot of solitude, but around people. And you're only kind of focused on yourself, at least I was. And I think that's what is so attractive about running, or the running community, or people picking up running, is that you can just kind of get lost within the masses, but still be focused on you, while the spotlight is not necessarily on you. Because there's, some of these races, there's like 50,000 people. And so you kind of just get to do your best and push yourself in this demonstration of people who are out here trying to do and better their lives, physically, emotionally, mentally. And you're not kind of singled out, as in pretty much every triathlon up until like maybe the second loop of a run of a long distance try. Everyone's kind of spread out, like you can cheer, you can like rattle off, you can read on the bibs if you're out spectating of like a 7.3 Ironman. You have enough time to like read the front name, like, hey, go Mike, go Terry, go Rob, go Sally. Like you have, but in a marathon or half marathon of those kind of like sizes, you have no luck. Like there's nothing. You have no shot. There's just too many people. So I think that's part of it. And I think it's awesome. I think the more opportunities that the endurance world has to offer is all good, across all sports and different kinds of events. You see swim run events are taking off. You see even gravel triathlon, I think, is going to be a huge sport in the next 3 to 4 years. Different kind of endurance events. There's a lot. The Dirty Kansas is like an insanely hard thing to get into now. I think it's great, because I think endurance sports in general, can be such a positive outlet and area of growth for so many people. And so I think which, it's kind of the way that a lot of times I feel like, or I hope, and I'm sure we fail a lot, but like what we try to do with this podcast is that, like you said, there's only so many podcasts we can do that's like, these are the 6 ways to do this, until we start to contradict ourselves, where this is the diet, and then, a year later we do another diet to get more listeners and have spikes. And what we don't want is that. We just want to be true to ourselves, and how we're trying to deliver a message that hopefully brings you an opportunity to take something positive, something, not everything, maybe everything, but hopefully just something, and take that and be able to apply it in a very comfortable format. And I know that for some listeners, it's probably a turnoff because they like black and white, finite, give it to me so I can apply it immediately. And I think there's a lot of value in that as well. But that's not either you or I's personality. That's not how I coach. But I do. I feel like there's always opportunities there, as endurance sports is finding now, to be able to reach more people, and not just be single sport or single event focused. And so I think that's part of why running is turning to turn that way and gain more traction. And I think triathlon's on the spike again. So yeah, I think it's all good things. But yeah, we'll keep plugging away in 2020 and try to do a better job of being informative, a little more specifically informative where we can be, but also keep things light, loose, and hopefully keep that conversation style that I know so many easy to listen to is the one of my favorite compliments we can get about our podcast is that we're easy to listen to, and I like that because I feel like that tells me that a lot of the information that we get is also easily absorbed.
Mm.
Um, it's like going to a class and having a really boring teacher and they could give you like a million different statistics, but you could absorb zero. Or having a really good teacher who can explain things in a way that connects with you and you can gain, so much knowledge out of just a little bit. So yeah, that's what we try to do. That's a little bit about running.
Well,
Um,
yeah. Before
like
we
that.
get off of running and the women, let's face it, man. Women are kicking men's ass all over the running course these days. Too. I think. Well, all in triathlon, really. I think it's awesome, man, that women are just like closing the gap all over the place on swim, bike, and run. I mean, it's getting to the point where, isn't it? I mean, truly, swimming and running for sure. That even the elite athletes are closing ground here. So I
Well,
think that's
and they're also becoming more popular. It was
yeah,
always, at least from I think in the endurance community, when you look at the female participation in the names that you hear and you recognize, at least I know in our household and in my very small world, like, if I think swimming, I think Katie Ledecky. I don't think of any other dude. I think immediately of Katie Ledecky. And swimming is an endurance sport. When I hear, running, I think, Des
Mike Mark.
Linden. I think of women. Like it's because I think, and also I get it because it's also skewed to your nationality. Like I'll immediately think of an American, and I feel like American South. That's who I'm going to go to. But no, I think it's great. I think it's great for sports, and I think it's great for the youth of the next generation to be led by and find and see, quote unquote stars in so many different sports that create so many different opportunities than what traditionally we had growing up as kids. It was basically you only had, the marketing dollars behind, baseball, football, hockey, whatever, and football. That's just what you did. Those are your choices. And now it's everything. I mean, you've got swimming, lacrosse, like it's just so many running, cross country. There's just so many opportunities for kids, I think today, and I think it's great. I think the more opportunities, the better. I think it'll help uh, prevent kids from early specialization in sports and just kind of participate and do things for fun and learn a lot from them. But yeah, no, I think it's great, and I would agree with you on that.
Well, that's funny though, because when I think of swimming, the first guy I think of is, or first person I think of is Mark Spitz.
Well, you're just showing
And
your
then,
age right there. Like,
and
just
then
showing your
I was going to
age.
say when I think of running, like distance running, I think of Frank Shorter,
So you're
the
going like
marathoner. Yeah, I'm going old
70s.
school.
Yeah, you're
Which
going like
reminds
way old
me,
school.
so this morning, dude, I was on YouTube for a minute, and a video popped up, and it was Michael Jackson's the short film for Smooth Criminal. Are you old enough to remember Michael Jackson?
Are you serious? Last night, it's funny you bring up Michael Jackson because last night at our Christmas dinner table, my cousin said that was the first concert she ever went to was a Michael Jackson concert, and I was
Oh,
like,
really?
yeah, I was kind of blown away. I was like, man, I missed out on going to one of those concerts, but yes, I know who Michael Jackson is.
Okay, so but this ties in. Hang with me here. Um, so I'm watching this thing, and I was thinking back to, man, when this came out when I was whatever, younger, and it was the coolest thing ever. His videos were like cutting edge. They were
Hmm.
right, they were the breaking ground all over the place. People were just like enamored all the way around. But I was watching it now and I was like, that's kind of cheeseball. I was a little bit like, watching I haven't seen any of them, but like probably watching the original Star Wars versus the graphics and things nowadays. And it got me thinking, how things evolve and it almost reminded me of like watching an old Iron Man video when the triathletes are on wooden aero bars or something like that. And just
Hmm.
to think about how I think it ties into this thing we were just talking about with women, how the sport has evolved and how, like, I don't know, just things change over time. The accessibility to having, the highest, technology, and there's just more technology, and people, the entry level for these sports is so much different now, and it keeps getting, easier, to get. I mean, yeah, on one hand, you got the more expensive bikes and things like that, but they're, bikes are more affordable. All the gear and, just people making cheaper gear, more affordable things. And I just think more and more people are getting into these sports. And it's amazing how, in the last, I don't know, 20 years, how different stuff is.
And
But
it's going to continue to be different.
yeah,
I
but then
think
it doesn't
that's
make them faster, though.
right. Yeah. Well, that's yeah, that's the other thing is if you look back at like some of the fastest time ever and what they were using, they weren't using power meters, weren't using GPS watches, they weren't using training peaks, they weren't using foot pods, they were just working out to effort and writing it down on a piece of paper. And yet, still, we're able to, it's like I always joke with our athletes sometimes on swimming. They're like, yeah, but my Garmin doesn't work. I'm like, you do realize that Olympic swimmers don't even wear watches. They use the clock on the wall. Like that's again, like we get trapped in this line of thinking of the things that we need, and those are essential to, um, things we have to do. Which brings me to the topic for today.
Oh, I thought we were in the topic.
I mean, we kind of were, but we talked about, and I think that goes into perfectly in kind of an outline of how to of simplifying triathlon.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I wrote out some bullet points again as we're trying to do better at kind of listing things out. But I got 5 bullet points because again I think it's a sensitive time of year for a lot of people. A lot of people are going to take up this sport. A lot of people are going to try to achieve different things. And while I think that it might be you could title it whatever, simplifying triathlon. While it might seem beginner friendly, again, it's going to be something I think if you listen, it's something that we can all apply to where we are because each season we get to kind of start over in your approach and your chooses or your choices to race specific things on how you're going to train or your commitment, and then most importantly, I think is your mindset. And so yes, in terms of simplifying triathlon, I've got five kind of points, and I'll read them off first, and then we can kind of go into them. I can chat about them. But the first step one, define your journey. Two, commit to it. Number three, plot your course. Number four, gather your materials. And number five, start your journey. Broad yet simple, but much more difficult than you would imagine. And I think I wanted to start with defining your journey because again, you can put that into the person who, if you're a person who's picking up a sport for the very first time, because I'm often kind of surprised sometimes by the emails that we'll get from listeners who haven't even done a triathlon yet. In that, while I'm kind of surprised, it also kind of heaps on a different level of responsibility, I think, to what we're trying to convey to people who listen, and just the assumption that they know, or the kind of, you have these specific, amount of information that you kind of inherently know, and then we're just kind of going over the other layers of it. And when I say step one in simplifying triathlon is define your journey, is because that's where we often get lost. And I think it's the hardest one to commit to. And defining your journey, whether you're a beginner, intermediate, advanced, or you've been doing it for, no seasons, or you're entering your 20th, is journeys have an ebb and flow. Journeys change. The reason you get into sports change, and how you find yourself and where you find yourself along that journey changes. But I think defining your journey and why you're doing it in the first place is the best way to create, hopefully, something that's sustainable. And it doesn't have to be performance related. A lot of people will get in the sport and say, I want to qualify for Kona. They see, the Kona World Championships on NBC or something that moves them, and that's how they get in the sport. But defining your journey is, I think, the most important thing you can do, because so many times in the sport we get lost among other people's Facebook posts or Instagram posts and what they're doing, or FOMO registrations and everything, that we kind of just get caught up in the chaos of media and what everyone else is doing, that we end up just kind of honestly participating in a very scattered and distractive narrative that is triathlon. And we sign up for races we don't need to sign up for, we commit to things we don't need to commit to, we just kind of shift our focus towards just kind of going with what seems to be a quote unquote flow. And I think if you just define your journey, what you want to get out of the sport. Do you want to be healthier? Do you want to be happier? Do you want to stay injury free? Do you want to lose weight? Do you want to feel better about yourself? Do you want to find a way to channel your, anxiety or depression? Like all these things, like that's at the core of your journey where you need to start, but is also, in my opinion, the hardest to stick to. And again, because like I was saying, like like you and I both got in the sport for very for some somewhat similar reasons, but also very different. But and we've often talked about in this podcast about how we kind of forget how we originally defined this journey. And I'm not saying that your journey always has to change, because and I think goals are great, but when you set out for a specific goal, things get lost along the way. And so I think if you kind of maybe say define your journey, or maybe just define your core values of how you want to be and how you want to present yourself and the mindset you want to have and the things you want to achieve mentally, emotionally, and physically, I think that's a great place to start before you even start counting the races and the distances and the times associated with that. I think you need to kind of get down to brass taxes and just figure out intrinsically what it is you want to get out of this journey that you're either about to start or if you've lost your way and you're going to start over. But what do you really want to get out of it? And then write that down and kind of just put it on top of mind for the decisions that you make down the road.
Yeah, I've got something to say about that. Uh,
I hope so, or this podcast is going to go nowhere.
it's just gonna fall apart. I've been thinking about it because, man, I've been in the sport 7 years or so, and I actually went for a run with a buddy the other day on Saturday, and we went through these. It wasn't a hilly situation, but it was a super muddy trail. Um, so it was not even that long a run, 6 miles, and I was really beat up at the end of that thing, and I think it was a lot of, like, how you slide on. I was just wearing regular shoes and I was sliding all over the place, and
Hmm.
when I got done, my knee was hurting, like it hurt like I haven't had it hurt in a long time, and I was just sore and all kinds of beat up, and I've been thinking this way for a long time anyway. That's why I don't have any races scheduled, but I'm on sort of like I'm feeling like January has to be the resurrection of Mike, or the re-resurrection of Mike or something, because um, my over so the reason I'm thinking that way is this sort of like I've just felt so tight for so long in my legs, my hamstrings, and my IT band. It doesn't hurt, but it's just tight, like that whole thing. I just feel like something's got to give. So I'm really trying to figure out what I'm going to do about it, like Rolfing or something, but I don't know. But like, um, I just really want to get that. I feel like I'm in quote unquote good shape, but I just feel like I'm wound tight like a drum, man. And I just really need to find more of that overall kind of flow, flexible athlete guy again. So I'm redefining my journey a little bit in that regard.
Which I think, and again, like as difficult it is to kind of define your journey when you start, because you're like, well, I want to achieve so many things, and like, what do I feel like I can achieve? Because so many people want to have something that's also reachable. When you've been in the sport for a long time, I think it's harder to kind of because again, like it's you've created a habit of what you
Hmm.
see and what you want to do, and though like when I start to work with someone in swimming, they're like, I've never swam before, I haven't had any lessons. I'm like, perfect. This is the best news because I you don't have to worry about breaking habits. Like we've all gone through something to where creating habits is hard, but it's creating a habit from also having to break another one that you've concreted in yourself for such a long period of time that
Yeah,
it's
man.
so hard, and you find yourself doing these things without even thinking, right? And so I think that for a guy in your position who's been doing this for, like I said, like 7 years, like that is just as, if not harder, to kind of redefine where you are and maybe to what your like where your mentality is. It's been entrenched in thinking a certain way for so long as your mentality is like, no, 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 we got to go, go, go. We've got to keep pressing on. We haven't come this far to take a step back. And you can't look at it that way. You can't look at it as, well, I've come this far. I can't take. I don't have time for this because I'm not getting any younger. I'm not getting any faster. Whatever you want to put it. But if you want to continue to do it, you have to commit. And I almost posted this last week on our closed Facebook group. If you're not in there, you can hop on Facebook and search Crushing Iron Group. But I was reading an article that Steve Magnus has posted. We've interviewed him before. He's a great, very very smart guy, great run coach, and a great interviewer or a great guest. But he was like, running is one of those things where you brace yourself.
Okay.
If you likely won't will not achieve your very very best potential for 8 to 10 years
Mm.
of consistent work, right? Because it takes that long to for things to get done. And of course, that's not anything anyone wants to hear. Like most people tune into podcasts now because they want a quick fix, they want actionable items they can do now, but it is an actionable item. It is a philosophy or an approach, however you put it, of our mindset of being consistent and doing a specific amount of work in the aerobic zone and the other amount of work, at higher levels. But that's how you get faster and doing it for a sustainable period of time. But for a guy like yourself, who you would think, all right, I gotta loosen up, I gotta get my body kind of realigned if I want to continue to do this, because at some point it's not about getting faster, it's about slowing down, getting slower. And I don't think that's where you are, but a lot of athletes that are aging up, that's kind of the seesaw, emotional state they're in, is like, I got to keep like chasing this time or chasing this, so I need to go harder and longer. But one of the more difficult things, and this is a role coaches play a lot, is like, no, 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 we need to take a step back right now and recover and repair, and let's rebuild ourselves as this athlete if we want to continue to participate as an athlete that's growing, getting faster, hopefully getting stronger, instead of trying to just delay the basically erosion of who we were 7 years ago. And that's just a hard conversation to have. So again, like if you've been in this journey for 7 years or 10 years or 20 years, I think the biggest thing is that if you're defining your journey, you have to define it in a way that can maximize your ability and the potential you have to continue to be happy. And triathlon and endurance sports has one of like the most interesting, I think, abilities to increase our happiness of anything we can do. It's better than buying anything. It's better than going and sitting down and doing whatever it is. A lot of times, sitting down watching TV, the things that we think make us happy and relaxing. Like endurance sports can teaches you so much. And so I think if you define your journey and stick to it, don't get lost again, like in the chaos and distraction flow of where everyone else is going, and that just feels like what I need to do. Stick to your guns. And that kind of reason my second one, which is commit to it. Define your journey is the first step. The second step is commit to it. I have never met an athlete or worked with an athlete who has mapped out their race season, 2, 3 races, maybe that's the max, and stuck to it and regretted it. I have met so many athletes and work with so many athletes that get distracted along the way. Again, kind of going back to the first, is they lack kind of a definition of their journey. Well, we've all done this, I think. If you're an athlete, just listen to this podcast, I would guess you've done this before. You've plotted out your race season. This is my plan of attack. I've got a 70.3 in May. I've got a full in October. These are kind of the steps I need to take, and then a new race comes out, and you're like, oh, I got to rethink things. I,
Hmm.
I think I think I'm gonna race in July, and maybe I know I committed to just doing 70.3s this year, but oh man, I think I'm itching to do a full Ironman. And then you sign up for one, you're like, my buddy signed up for this one. Let's just do two, and you're like, wait a minute, am I maximizing the definition I put on my own journey, or am I falling victim to just following other people's journey and being a passenger along the way? And you could define that or commit to that in a mental and emotional way, as I know so many athletes do this time of year, when you talk with your spouses and your friends and you commit to a season. And this is something that I used to do with a just blatantly all the time before I got sober. I was in such a distracted, chasing. Nothing I had was enough. Nothing I ever did, this, like nothing I ever did was I would sign up or participate in just crazy events or races on like a whim. And it wasn't because I was committed to, racing and doing this. It was because I was just kind of flailing about. It's like you throw up a leaf and watch it go in the wind. You can't pick the direction or ebb and flow. You don't have any idea where it's going to land. It's just kind of in the wind. And that's kind of what my mentality was. And you even see athletes who aren't in that state just kind of like it's like they're swinging at a race pinata. and they're eventually I'm going to hit it and I'm going to feel good. But that's one of the hardest things is picking out your race calendar and sticking to it. These races that get announced, these friends that do other races, guess what? Hopefully they're not going to retire. They're going to race again next year. You can race with them. And these races that just get announced, guess what? They'll probably going to stick around too. You don't have to do Memphis 70.3 this year because it just got announced. You don't have to sign up for the new Ironman race just because it got announced. It's like fear. You're reactionary to what the world is providing you. You're not just sticking to it. And I think that is one of the biggest. I'm not saying there's not good to become from it or that can be gotten from it, but I'm saying if you want to define your journey, you want to commit to your own, your own, and really get from it what you want to get out from it, it has to be yours. And I think that might come across as sounding selfish, but it's not. There are very few things in our lives that we can kind of call our own and not share. And that's one of the reasons why I've fallen so much in love with running right now is, and even though Allie hates I don't take my phone with me, is like that's like one of the very few points in time where I can just not be touched. No phone, no laptop, no nothing, no TV, no really. I think what it is, and maybe this is what I'm trying to get to the point I've committed to is there's no temptation, right? I understand my inability to put myself first if I'm surrounded by things that tempt me. Like my phone or my emails or training peaks. Like those things tempt me to want to look at them and do them. Like I'm driven and I'm kind of being lured in by those. But if I remove those, because I'm currently don't have the ability to not do them, and I can go out and do something positive for myself, then that's a win. And so I think as you look at like committing to yourself and committing to your journey, which is committing to yourself, then those are things you can be selfish with. Then no, I'm not going to do that race, or I'm not going to do that track workout, or I'm not going to do this, whatever you want to do, because I don't feel like it's going to benefit me and allow me to continue on the path that I want to and the journey I've defined. And I think again, that's not an easy one. It's actually incredibly difficult.
Well,
As I think,
committing,
yeah,
yeah,
committing is difficult, right?
committing to anything is it's just not that sexy in a lot of ways, you know. If you think about a Memphis, it's a great example because it is new and it is the flashy new item in the room, and it's that new high that we can, you know what I mean? Like it's that fear of missing out. But really, other than that day, you might have a little bit of like if you could look ahead and realize that the minute that race is over, it's like isn't a big a deal. It's just like if you can get that out of your head that I'm really missing this and I want to be there for the accolades and just to be a part of it and whatever, the next day nobody cares about it anymore. So it's like
Hmm.
it's really hard to put yourself in the future like that because you're kind of always reminded of it, and then as the race nears, everybody's getting ready and they're talking about it and all this kind of stuff, and like who cares, man? It isn't like I mean, I've done a lot of races, and yeah, it feels good to be a part of them, and it hurts the whole time usually. But when you're done, you know it's not like you're set for life or some kind of thing like that. You know what I mean? You're not really missing out on that much just because you didn't do one race. So I think that's a committing, like I said, to anything is not the sexy way to go, and it's just difficult. It's like even if I say I'm committing to January as Mike's Resurrection Month, I have to do it, because it is, and it pops in my head all the time, even when I say stuff like that. Like if I'm going to be like, okay, I'm going to commit to rolling, I'm going to commit to doing
Hmm.
all these kind of things that really, really get in there and like reset me, like you said, realign things.
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking for more than anything. But the odds of certain races popping in my head is going to be pretty high, and it'll be like, you know what, dude, just suck it up and just start racing, and that'll change
Hmm.
things back to it. But it's that
Even
constant grinding numbness that you want to kind of alleviate sometimes.
yes, but and usually it's what you're alleviating is your lack of commitment.
Mhm.
Because like when you said, no, just go ahead and sign up for a race. Usually it should be, dude, just suck it up and don't do it.
Yeah.
Because our immediate response is always we have to do it to show our commitment, but that's the total opposite. It's actually show your commitment by not doing it. And again,
Yeah.
I'm not advocating for not picking up races. I'm saying if it affects the integrity of your season or what you've personally committed to. And there have even been times where I've had, athletes been like, "Hey, is this race a good idea?" I'm like, "Dude, have you even talked to your wife about this?"
Mm.
Because or your spouse, because they will kill you if you actually choose to sign up for this because you just did this and this and this and told me that it's not a good idea. But we get lost in it. And I think that, so again, like, committing to it is committing to it on so many different levels, emotionally, mentally, physically. But I can tell you this, from experience on both ends of the spectrum, the value you get from sticking to a plan and working it the entire time and then seeing its finished product is so much more valuable than looking back and thinking, I don't even know what my plan was or where it went awry. I just did things along the way and I got distracted. So commit to it. Define your journey and then commit to it. In order to commit to it, after that, number three, plot your course. Commit to your journey. What do I want to get from it? And then three, plot your course is basically defining points along the way of how you can assess how your journey is going, how your commitment is going, and what have you committed to, and how are things going. That could be, and again, when I say plot your course, that could be races, that could be benchmarks, because I got this conversation with a family member who was asking about goals and specifics. And I was like, I think specifics are important, but I think it's choosing your specific an item or a goal or a time, whatever, or is one thing, but the most important thing you can decide on to commit to is what characteristics of yourself do you need to apply or work on or create or make a habit in order to maximize your chances of achieving this. Because in so many things that we do inside, like plotting our course, whether it's races or kind of the navigation of your season, we assume and expect to be at certain places along this course. We've got a plotted a course and plotted a point in May, plotted a point in July, and by here I want to pyramid. I see athletes do this all the time. They create in Training Peaks. They can create this like goal icon, and they'll have like goal, weigh this by July 13th, or be able to run this by, September 2nd. And I'm like, what in the world? Like, I get having goals, but like some of them, and I think that they're important, but I think one of the most important things you can do in plotting your course is put these events out there, put these milestones out there. But again, when you go back, don't lose yourself in number three, because I think what happens a lot of times as we plot our course, we allow those plot points, as we'll call them races, those now define who we are and how the season is going to go. When if we've doing this long enough, what defines you the most and what you get the most from is the journey. But we get lost in the the 70.3s, the full Ironman, the marathons, whatever races, we get lost in those. So plotting out your course after you commit to it is so important and setting yourself up for success, but also making it a point to, these races are just points along the way. They are, you can say items to check off, races to do. As long as you're using it as a learning experience, I think it's a positive. And I think that's one of the biggest things you can do, especially as a beginner. In plotting your course, is plot something that allows you to be successful. Don't put two races back to back that are not going to complement each other. Don't race two long races in the back to back weekends. Don't travel across the country for one race and then 2 weekends ago think you're going to be totally recovered and back on this one. Like, be smart about it. And again, set yourself up for success. Don't be erratic with, don't get me wrong, like, I think there's a great time and place, and if that's the season of your life you're in, it's to pick races that are just fun, kind of location, destination driven adventures to have and experiences. I'm totally fine with that. But you can't balance both of meeting expectations or commitments that you've made, while also a lot of times managing that other attraction, which is doing races here or not doing races here. And so plotting your courses is, I think, also it's difficult because you want to know the timing is right, you want to know the distance is right, you want to know the location is right, you want to know that the course is good for you, or it's going to be complementary to your training that's going to lead you to the biggest end of the season race. So again, plot your course, and especially for beginners, plot your course and stick to it. Plot your course and stick to it. Sprints, Olympics, whatever it is, half marathons, 5Ks, whatever it is, stick to it. Don't let that dangling, treat at the end that might take you way off the rails. I signed up for a sprint, but man, I think I'm going to jump up to the next one and just do a 70.3, even though I haven't done this and this. Just stick, plot your course, be confident in it, and then work your plan that you previously hopefully committed to.
Yeah, man, but plotting your course, that's one of the hardest ones for me too, because I like when I think about plotting a course out a year ahead, like forget about it, man.
Oh,
I'm like,
dude,
I
I
gotta
know.
do like tomorrow.
I know.
That's my tomorrow plot. And, again, like it goes back to when I first started running, and I always bring this up, but my Couch to 5K, I had tried to run a million times in my life up until that point, but for some reason, that particular moment in life for me was all about like, all right, just surrender to the plan here and don't deviate one iota, no matter if you feel good. Like today is 4 60-second running segments with a walk between, whatever. Don't do five, don't do six. And
Hmm.
I committed to that. And that was how I started running. And I
Mm.
got through this 5K program and I surrendered to the whole methodology that was already created. I didn't try and reinvent the wheel, which I always do. And that's how I got into running. But then, after that, I've been in and out of this, plotting phase where I'll try to, I'll throw an Ironman out at the end of the year, and then that's the goal. And then I'm in tri-calc, and then I'm, whatever. It goes on and on, But I
Yeah, but
think the week to week thing is a big part of plotting for me, you
I
know.
think that's also hugely important to recognize is that so many people do better not having to commit to something that might create um, a level of not having confidence in it because they know themselves. Like I think that's also a positive because you know yourself well enough to think, I don't know when I'm going to be ready to have this laid out in a way that I feel uh, confident that I can execute it to the ability that I want to without adding additional stress and pressure to the stress and pressure I'm already putting on myself to perform at a specific level.
Mm.
I don't want to have to be, ready on time by this day because that's just too much pressure. Because then I might overreach. Then I might reach too far, too quick, too often, too hard. And if I get behind, well, the next answer is always, I got to make up for lost time. And so I think that's also a positive in knowing yourself when you choose to plot a course or, as you just said, not plot a course because I think again, like a lot of people want to jump to step three, but what I'm hearing from you is saying if I haven't done one and two, I haven't defined my journey, and then two, I haven't fully committed to it yet, then I have no idea what I want to plot.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
I've always, you've for 7 years, like you've always had I've always gotten like this season kickoff text. It's like, all right, dude, I'm ready. It's like, no, right. You're just like, it'll be like totally random and like a random hour of the day. And you're like, all right, dude, I'm ready. But I
Hmm.
think that's so important because if it was something that was forced, then a lot of times you're going to be much farther behind than you will be ahead. And I know that inactivity to a lot of people sounds like getting behind. But if you're going to be inactive and forcing yourself to be active or doing something that you don't want to do, then what's more likely going to happen is your commitment level isn't going to be as high. You're not bought in. So you're much more likely to, for the course of the year, be not bought in the entire time. You're not invested. And so you're going to be very disengaged. You're going to get distracted. You're going to take breaks because you were never invested in the first place. And so I think that if you wait to be and get that feeling of, right, I am ready to commit. I've defined my journey. I'm ready to commit to it. And now let's plot the course. Then to me, 6 months of of executing your course or your journey that you've committed to fully is significantly better than having quote unquote just started for the sake of starting 9 months and doing this for 9 months. Because
Mm.
again,
100%. Yeah.
success is about being bought in. It's about being invested. It's about being committed. So don't just jump to point three, which so many people love to do just because they feel like they have to have something on their calendar to feel like they're part of the triathlon community or that they are, everybody's got to kind of renew their I'm a triathlete card by signing up for a 70.3 or a full, each year. That's not the case. Like you have to be commit to it. And then again, like if you're not ready to commit to it, then don't commit to a journey or a course that you're not prepared for, because that's going to lead you to resenting it. It's going to lead you to not being prepared for it. Then you're going to make you disengage and more unhappy. But again, it's about being happy. So listen to yourself and don't force feed being ready. I think there are times where you can test your readiness if you're ready. Like you said, going out for a run with a friend, going out and doing this, hopping on my trainer. If I want to get off after 10 minutes, guess what? Not ready. If you get on and you're like, hey, I got that feeling. I think I'm ready. It's just, I think it's one of the more underrated areas of awareness that endurance athletes can have, is knowing when they're ready to get back and when they're not, instead of just expecting that they have to be back, and not being, just feeling like they're hammered down by these expectations that they, and that's always one of my biggest fears as a coach, is like, I get always weary sometimes with specific athletes. I'm like, please don't sign up for this race. Like, please don't sign up for this race. Not because I don't think you can do it, but I'm afraid about what it's going to do to your psyche along the way. And that might sound like, intense for people, but the amount of pressure that athletes put on themselves when they sign up for a race, when they turn this sport that can be so positive into a chore or into a have to, it worries me, because not in like some, like I fear for their life, but like it no, it doesn't worry me. I guess that I just think it's unfortunate, and I think it's just one of those things I think we could all do better as, especially coaches, and not always saying, "Oh yeah, do it, baby, let's crush it." It's saying like, "No, I don't think it's a good idea. I want you to do this, like, again, like if you're a coach, you want to be invested 24/7, 365 in the athlete, in the person, in their journey, not as a contract through their race. And the concern you have as a coach is like, if you commit to this course and you aren't ready, you're going to leave without, what number 4 is, which is, gather your materials. What do you need? Do you need a training plan? Do you not need a training plan? Do you need a coach? Do you not need a coach? And number 4, gather your materials. Like, what do you need to be successful to to commit to the journey, or to do, to complete your journey, to be a part of it, to commit to it, and to execute the course you've now plotted? What are the materials that you need? Do you need a bike trainer? Do you need a better bike? Do you not need a better bike? Do you need a power meter? Do you need goggles? Do you need run shoes? Always, in my opinion, always, always, always get a limited amount to start, because you only need a limited amount of time. Going back to like what you and I were talking about at the beginning of this podcast, like, why has running become so popular? Because it's cheap. Run shoes, done. Like, you don't even need like technical like run shorts and a run shirt. You could just like grab like an old cotton tee out of there, and some shorts, and go run. Everyone can run. My 3-year-old can go on a run. That's again why it's become so popular. And so many athletes overbuy and overpurchase, and again overcommit to these material items that they don't need, that just pollutes the rawness of what they're supposed to be able to get out of this sport. And so gather your materials, but gather the basics. Gather the basics. It's like you're going to go stranded on a desert island. What are you going to do? Just go grab a bunch of food? Or you're going to also make sure you grab like a stove, to cook this food. It's like, just grab the basics, that what you need to be successful, because success isn't usually buying something. It's not going to a website. It's not success. It's something that you might feel might help your success. What are you laughing at? You want
Well,
to
no,
buy
I was
something?
just no, because as you were saying all this, all I was thinking about was the Amazon effect, and how you might go buy I'm not saying buy running shoes on Amazon, but like whatever you buy is like, other people seem to buy this too, and next thing you know, it's like you're doing that.
Like,
And I do that with books. Like, I was just laughing because I just did it with books. It's like, all right, this is the book I'm going to read. I'm going to follow it. I'm going to be dialed in on that. But when I bought it, other people have bought this. I bought like 6 books, and I'm probably not going to read any of them. You know what I mean? It's like, that's what happens. And that's what happens in triathlon, I think. That's why I always like, I'm like, I try to get old school with, like, I run in a hoodie and cotton shirts. It's like,
hmm
that's what we used to do. I mean, people did that for many, many years. It's not like you need all the gear. I know it's nice and it looks cool and everything like that, but I like the simplicity of it sometimes. Like, That's why, I granted my bike is a little outdated or whatever, but I still don't, want to blame stuff on gear, It doesn't make any sense to me, but
Yeah, just gather the materials that you need. And again, when I say materials, I don't mean just equipment. I mean like time management and allocating specific amounts of time. Because again, when I go back to number three and people who rush through the course they plotted, not ready for it or prepared or committed, they will just start and then get going. It's like, going on a 3 week vacation, having only packed like two things. You're just not going to be ready. Day one you might be able to get by with it, but a week down the road, things are going to stink. And you're not going to have enough clothes. Things aren't going to look right. So gather your materials, but just gather the basics. And if you're listening and you're a new triathlete or even like a seasoned veteran, the best piece of equipment you can buy, period, in my opinion, is a dumb trainer. Spend $200, hop on Craigslist, buy one for like 150 or $100. It is the best investment you will ever make. In my opinion, especially for when it comes to bang for the buck. Most athletes will spend like $700 on a wetsuit they'll use 4 times a year, versus spending $200 on a trainer. I know you've had yours forever. I've had one of mine for like 8 years, and I've gotten every single bit of my money's out of that. So just gather your materials, but again, go back and look at what you need. And then I say materials, I don't mean just equipment and devices or shoes or the new goggles. I mean, just get the basics because like when you see people who have more and more and more stuff, I don't think you're more successful. I just think you're more distracted. Just get the basics because what oftentimes when I see, and this isn't for everyone because some people are just obsessed with data or they think they are, they just like the illusion of it, is every single purchase I see was a moment or a week time or a week's time of you were distracted from what your original goal was. It wasn't a purchase of this is going to put me further along in the direction of being successful. It was no. It was a fleeting moment in commitment or motivation or a dip in energy or a dip in questioning themselves. And so your your answer was, I got the quick fix for that motivation. Click click, spends $800. And you're like, this is gonna get, I can't wait for it to get my bam, look at it, baby. New arrow helmet. I'm ready to ride. I do not want to get on my bike trainer right now because I can't even wear my fancy helmet. It's February. And you're like, gosh, that was a big mistake. Like, it's not. It's more like purchases or like a sign. I could probably honestly, if I get somebody out there smart enough to integrate like some like coding of, if I could link up every athlete that I work with, if I could link up their Amazon or like just web purchase account with Training Peaks, and every time they purchase an item and it populates in Training Peaks, I can probably predict the lows and motivation and like energy. And if I say, oops, Mike Torelli purchases new Rudy Project helmet, I'm like, oh crap, here we go. He's about to go like a major depressive episode here. He's buying a new helmet because restraint, in my opinion, again, going back to like committing to it in your own planning journey, is committing to it and sticking to it. And sometimes the best decisions you can make or the best positives or additions to your own arsenal are just recognizing that you already have what you need to be successful. You're just not using it all, or you're not convinced of it, or you don't have it. It's not buying it. And again, like I think that's a tough one, especially as we're here on Christmas Eve and we're bashing presents. So like, don't let your spouse listen
quit
to this here.
triathlon and don't buy
Seriously.
presents tomorrow.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, congratulations on all the new gifts you're about to get. But yeah, I'm just saying, like, especially like as the year gets going, just be careful.
All right, man. And what's the
Number
fifth part?
five,
What's Mike
man. Number
talking?
five. Yeah, with all the gifts that you weren't allowed to just buy. Number five. Number five. I'm like the Grinch, man. Number five. Start your journey and just get started. I think again, like you have to do all those things before those to get started, or at least to get started and feel confident that you're set up for success and you feel empowered that you're headed in the right direction, that you truly believe that the course you set out, the journey that you're about to be on, the commitment level that you have, and that you feel equipped with the materials that you need, both physical ones and also mental, emotional materials that you need to be successful, then get to work and get started. Because I also think that while a lot of these are difficult to apply, a lot of athletes are just genuinely scared of getting started. If you're listening and you're a first-time triathlete, you've never even done one, you're dabbling in the sport, trying to find a positive way, or a podcast, or a episode, or a person, or a post that's gonna like finally convince you to make it click, to get over that hump. That I can do it. It's just to commit and just do it. You will learn more by doing something and failing than doing nothing at all. And don't even look at it as failing, just look at it as growing and learn, opportunities to learn and grow, because you're all going to fall, you're all going to fail. We all remember the first time we got clip in pedals and just like fell over in like super slow-mo in front of basically everyone. Usually, like you never fall over by yourself. You could ride by yourself for like 3 days and basically think you're like the greatest, you know, cyclist ever that just got clip-in pedals, and then you go to meet up with your three buddies, and within like 30 seconds at a stop sign, you do like the you got like cow tipped. You just like slow-mo like fall over, and you get like super embarrassed. I got like a quick story about that from me, but when I lived in Hilton Head, I got mine for this is 2004. I got my first set of clip-in pedals, and was cruising down the greenway, or the bike path back to our condo, where we were living, and I right up this stop sign on my like brand new Felts, I think it's like SR14 or something, like one of their beginner entry level trad bikes. First one I ever owned, red, and I had saved up for it, just went and bought it, Go Try Sports, and was riding home, and I felt like $1 million. I mean, I felt super fast. I think I was going like 12 miles an hour. And I get up to this red light and I look over, and it's been to Hilton Head. It's like a huge, vacation place, summertime. And there's this car full of ladies and like all good looking. And I looked over and totally forgot that I needed to like stop. And so when I hit the stop and I realized I had no idea what to do next, and I bit it like slow-mo, like watching my ego just being crushed underneath me. But hey, guess what? You're all gonna fall. But the biggest point I'm saying is, A, have fun with it and be able to laugh at yourself, but just get started. You're gonna continue to learn things along the way. You're gonna learn more doing it than you are not. You have to be able to push yourself or nudge yourself in a direction far enough and confident enough to know that it's not always going to be perfect, that it's sometimes going to be hard, that you can learn so much from doing it rather than just sitting on the sidelines and watching. So immerse yourself in it, define your journey, commit to it, plot your course, gather your materials, and then just get started. Because honestly, that's when the fun starts. You race, you meet people, you have fun, you learn things, you get better, you flatline like a lot of people do, and then now the challenge is, how do I continue to get better? How do I continue to grow? And those challenges are the ones that you gain so much from, and that can be so positive in just not your endurance, sports endeavors, but in your personal life, professional life, relationships, whatever. So just get started. It's a great, again, that's why I love this time of year. Everyone has this sense of opportunity, and this sense of optimism of what they can achieve and what they can be and what they can accomplish in this next year if they only do this, this, and this. It's like, I promise you, for most of you, if you're listening, like you have it, you are it, and you just have to now go do it and understand that it's not going to be perfect, and just get out there and start it, enjoy it, and sign up for a race if you've been out there, as long as it's on the course that you plotted and you've been thinking about signing up for your first ever race. Just go sign up, do it, have some fun, and get ready to have a great year.
Yeah, and keep it easy and manageable in the beginning. The more often you can walk away from something and go, "Oh, that wasn't bad," or "That was kind of fun," or "That wasn't as bad as I thought it was," or "I feel good," you're winning. And I think that kind of goes forever, actually. I mean, the less times we get done with workouts or whatever we're doing, and we're like,
Mm,
I think I could have went more. I could, that feeling. That's what I always kind of try to look for, is like, if you can always have that, you're in business.
right.
You know. So check out the new website then. We've got a new coaching plan out there called the C26 Systems Plan, which is a really good way to plot your 2020 journey.
2002 Winnie. Yeah, I like the way you said that. That's some new lingo for coming up for the next year.
Yeah,
2002 Winnie. I like
yeah.
that.
Speaking of, in the next podcast, I'd like to do a little segment at least on things we hope go away in 2002 to 20.
Oh, I'm all for that, man. I'm sure a lot of people who just told me they can't buy anything are going to say they hope our podcast goes away. But yeah, just
Go
listen
buy.
like January.
Hey, when
Buy
you
everything.
after Christmas you get that Christmas money, go nuts.
Yeah, go nuts after that. Buy. Hey, listen, just go buy some. Like, go buy a few. Anyway, I'm not going to be a party pooper.
Buy a C26 systems plan for your
Yeah,
friends.
that'll be good. But no, in all seriousness, definitely set yourself up for success. Take it easy, chip away. Don't always go big or go home. It's like there's a lot of value in starting small and gaining confidence and getting things right.
Yep.
Get down the basics.
No pain, no gain is dead.
It's like I can't stand people say that. Like anyway,
It's dead,
that's
man.
one
It's like
that's one of the things
over.
that we'll talk about on the next one, which is things we wish would go away for 2020. And but no, um, hey, if you catch us actually before the 25th, we hope you have a Merry Christmas. Again, check out the website c26triathlon.com. If you have any questions for Mike, hit him up directly, crushingiron@gmail.com. If you have any questions for me directly and specifically, c26coach@gmail.com. We appreciate you listening as we have all year the last 3 years. We know there's a lot of triathlon related podcasts out there, and there are a lot of opportunities and different things you can do with every hour of your day and every minute of your attention span. So every time you guys give us your attention for an hour or 15 minutes or whatever it is, we appreciate it. We'll continue to try to do a better job this next year of giving you more content and better podcasts. And but yeah, we appreciate your time. Hope you have a great rest of the your Christmas holiday and a great start to the new year. And we'll catch you in a few days.
All right, buddy. Have a great Christmas.
You too, man.
See you, man.
See you, buddy.